all it does is manifest itself.
Now, I thought your description of this image of Mescalito was very vivid and very impressive. Do you think you could possibly, just to draw out one aspect of the book, describe what this figure seemed like to you?
Oh, well, it was truly an anthropomorphic composite. It was it was not truly a man, but it looked like a cricket. And it was very large, perhaps larger than a man. And it looked somehow like the surface of the cactus, the peyote cactus. And that was the top. It looked like a pointer head, but it had human features in the sense of eyes and a face.
Yes.
But it was not quite human either. It was something different about it. And the movements, of course, were quite extraordinary because they hopped.
Mm. Now, when you described this experience to Don Juan, how did he deal with it? Was this the right image? Or
no, he didn't care at all about my description of the form. He was not interested at all. I never told him what the form. He discarded it all. I wrote it down because it was quite remarkable for me as the man who experienced it. It was just extraordinary. It was truly a shocking experience. Thus, I record everything that I experienced, but insofar as telling him, he didn't want to hear about it. Mm. He said that it was unimportant. All he wanted to hear was whether how close he let me come in this anthropomorphic composite. At the time I saw it, let me come very close. I nearly touched him. And that, in Don Juan's system, I suppose, was a very good turn. And he was interested in knowing whether I was frightened or not. And I was very frightened. Mm-hmm. But insofar as the form, he never made any comment, or he didn't even show any interest in.
I'd like to ask about one particular set of experiences. We don't have to go into them in detail here. I think we might simply tempt the listeners to look at the book and read the actual details of the experience. But your final experience with Don Juan is one of extreme fearfulness. Why do you think he led you into this final situation, at least final in your relationship with him, in which, he very literally seemed to scare the hell out of you? Why? What was the purpose of that? It seemed almost, as you recorded, it seemed at points almost deliberate cruelty. What do you think he was up to when he did that?
When he had, previous to that last experience, or right before it, he taught me some position that it's proper of shamans to adopt at moments of great crisis, at the time of their death, perhaps. It's a form that they would adopt, and it's something that they would use. It's a sort of validation. It's the signature, let's say, that or they prove that they have been men. Before they die, they will face their death and do this dancing, and then they will yell at death and die. And I asked Don Juan, what would be so important? Since we all going to die, what difference does it make whether we dance or we cry or we scream or yell or run? And he felt, that the question was very stupid, because by having a form, a man could validate his existence. He could really reaffirm that he was a man, because essentially that's all we have. The rest is unimportant. At that very last moment, you see, the only thing that a man could do was to reassert that he was a man. So he taught me this form, and in the course of the event, this very frightening set of circumstances or actions, I was forced nearly to exercise this form and use it. It brought a great amount of vigor to me. And the event ended up there, successfully, in quotes. I was successful in perhaps staying away from death or something like that. Or the next day, the next night, he took me into the bushes. And what I was going to do was he was going to teach me how to perfect this form until it was neat. And in the course of teaching me, I found myself alone. And that's when this horrendous fear attacked me, really. And I think what he had in mind was for me to use this form, this position, this posture that he had taught me. And he deliberately scared me, I suppose, in order for me to test that.
I see.
And that was my failure, of course, because I really succumbed to fear. Instead of standing and facing my death, as I was supposed to, as a let's say, apprentice of this way of knowledge, I became a thorough European man, and I succumbed to fear.
How did things actually end then between you and Don Juan?
They ended that night, I think. I suffered a total ego collapse because the fear was just too great for my resources. And it took hours to pull me back. And it seems that we came to an impasse. We had never talked ever again about his knowledge. That's almost 3 years ago. Over 3 years ago.
You feel then he had finally led you up to an experience that was beyond your capacity to grapple with?
I think so. I think I exhausted my resources.
I see.
And I couldn't go beyond that. And it's coherent with the American Indian idea that knowledge is power. See, you cannot play around with it. And every new step, say, is a trial, and you have to prove that you're capable of going beyond that.
I see.
So that was my end.
Yes, and yet over the 6-year period, Don Juan led you through a great number of terribly trying and difficult experiences.
Yeah, I should say I would, but he does not think that I have that I'm finished by some, I don't know, for some strange reason. He has never acted as though I'm through. He always thinks that it's this period of clarification.
Did he ever make it really clear to you what it was about you that led him to select you for this vigorous process?
Guides his acts by indications, by omens. If he sees something that is extraordinary, some event that he cannot incorporate into his possibly his categorization scheme, if it doesn't fit in it, he calls it a portentous event or an extraordinary event, and he considers that to be an omen. When I first took that cactus, Fort Williams, the peyote, I played with a dog. It was a very remarkable experience in which this dog and I understood each other very well. And that was interpreted by Don Juan as an omen that the deity Mezcalito, peyote, had played with me, which was an event that he had never witnessed in his life. Nobody has ever, in his knowledge, nobody has ever played with the deity, he told me. Thus, it was extraordinary, and something was pointing me out, and he interpreted as that I was the right person to transmit his knowledge, or part of it, or whatever.
Well, now, after spending 6 years in apprenticeship to Don Juan, may I ask what difference this great adventure has made to you personally?
Well, he has certainly has given me a different outlook in life. It's enlarged my sense of how important today is, I suppose. I think, I have, I'm the product of my socialization. Like any other person of the Western world, I have lived very much for tomorrow all my life. I sort of saved myself up for another great future, something of that order. And it was only with the terrible impact of Don Juan's teachings that I came to realize how important it is to be here now. And it renders the idea of entering into states, to what I call non-ordinary reality, instead of disrupting the states of ordinary reality, they render them very meaningful. I didn't suffer any disruption or any disillusion with what goes on today. I don't think it's a farce. While I could say that I would have tended to think that it was a farce before, I thought that I was disillusioned, and I was an artist. So I did some work in art, and I felt, that something was missing with my time. Something was wrong. But as I see it, there's nothing wrong today. I cannot conceive what's wrong anymore, because it was vague to begin with. I never thought exactly what was wrong. But I alluded that it was a great area, that it was better than today. And I think that has been dispelled completely.
I see. Do you have any plans of ever seeking out Don Juan again?
No, I see him as a friend. I see him all the time.
You still do?
Yes, I do. I'm with him. I have been with him lots of times since the last experience I narrate in the book. But as far as seeking his teachings, I don't think I would. I sincerely think that I don't have the mechanics.
One final question. You make a heroic effort in the book to make sense of Don Juan's worldview. Do you have any idea of whether Don Juan took any interest or takes any interest in your worldview, the one you're calling that of a European man?
Well, no, I think he's versed. Don Juan's very versed in what we, the Europeans, stand for. He's not handicapped in that sense. He makes use. He's a warrior, and he makes use of his. He sets his life as a strategic game, and he makes use of everything that he can. He's very versed in that. My effort to make sense of his world is it's my own way of, let's say, paying back to him for this grand opportunity. I think if I don't make the effort to render his world as a coherent phenomena, he'll go by the way it has for hundreds of years as a nonsensical activity. When it is not nonsensical, it's not fraudulent, it's a very serious endeavor.
Yes. Well, the outcome of your experiences with Don Juan is a really fascinating book. After reading it myself, I can certainly recommend it to the Pacifica audience. It is an adventure in a very different world than we ordinarily live in. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Castaneda, for making this time available to talk about the book and about your adventures. This is Theodore Rosak.
Thank you.